We call a special meeting of the Ames City Council for Tuesday, September 17th to order. Welcome, Council, everybody. We have one item on the consent. Is there any questions for staff on consent? Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve consent.
Consent. Second.
Thank you, Listen. Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Aye.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the primary focus set tonight, and that is the workshop for downtown master plan city council input. As council is aware, in concert with Ames Main Street, they have contracted with a consultant to do some master planning for the downtown area, and they're engaging with a number of focus groups. And Sam Stagg has been kind of my point of contact, and discussed I think it'd be good for city council to give input. So I sent out some information, sent out some questions for you to think about over the weekend. And so we're going to turn this over to Sam, and then Sam can introduce who's there with you, and then get started.
Actually, I'm going to let Travis Tolliver, the new downtown executive and downtown Ames downtown director, kind of kick us off.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff, and viewing public. My name is Travis Tolliver, and I have the pleasure of being the new vice president of downtown development for the Ames Regional Economic Alliance, as well as the executive director of the Ames Main Street program. So it's a pleasure to address you tonight and to start a positive dialogue between our two organizations about the future of downtown. Some of you I've met, many of you I have not. So just a little background about me real quick. For the last 10 years, I served as the executive director for the Waverly Chamber of Commerce and Main Street program. Waverly is a town of 10,000, College, just north of Waterloo and Cedar Falls. And Waverly is one of the oldest Main Street communities in the network and has one of the most vibrant downtowns in its population category. I've also served on the boards for the Iowa Association of Chambers of Commerce. I'm currently on the board for the Mid-America Chamber of Executives, which serves 6 states in the upper Midwest, including Iowa. Most notably, though, I'm a tenured Main Street Executive Director. And I've assisted the Iowa Economic Development Authority in multiple countywide and downtown assessments. I've also been appointed to the Main Street Iowa Advisory Council, which reviews and recommends communities who meet or exceed the qualifications to become the next or the newest Main Street Iowa community. I mention these markers in my career not to boast, but to show that I come to this position with about a decade of experience in my field, and I stand in front of you, or sit in front of you tonight, ready to lead the master plan effort in conjunction with Main Street, the Alliance, and of course the city of Ames. I'm joined tonight by members of the Alliance and Ames Main Street, including Dan Culhane, President and CEO of the Alliance, Nicole Rasmussen to my right, who's our current board chair for this year, Sam Stagg, who's our past chair for last year, and who's going to walk you through an overview of the project, where we're at right now. And then down further in the aisle there is Andrew Dresner from the design firm Bolton Mink, who will be helping to facilitate tonight's session. Our goal this evening, through questions and positive dialogue, is to get a sense of what you, our community leaders, would like to see and how you'd like to see downtown feel and be like as we embark on the master plan journey together. So I look forward to meeting with you again, and I thank you for the opportunity to partner with you on the future of downtown Ames. So now I would like to turn things over to Sam Stagg, and who's our organization's leader.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much again for having us tonight. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all of your time so far in prepping for this evening, as well as just other initiatives and work that's been done by a handful of you. So thank you very much for the time that you've given us tonight, your effort here tonight as well. So we're excited to be in front of you, and we're excited about the efforts that we've been putting into this. I say we, there's quite a few folks involved in this and organizations. The Ames Economic Development Commission has been part and parcel. Discover Ames has been critical in this process. Of course, Ames Main Street, Ames Chamber, City Council. We had a handful of city staff. Kelly Diekman, Brian Phillips have been very helpful in this process. And we think that what we think will help this be successful, the catalyst will be this collaborative effort of all these different groups. And so you being the council is it's one of those critical groups that will help make this be a successful planning process, as well as then the culmination of working out the plan to what we want to see downtown become as the center and heart of Ames. So with that, I want to give just a quick overview of what got us here today in terms of conversations that have been had over the past several years. But as you know, there's been a whole host of visions and plans that have been created for downtown Ames, probably for the past 40 years. We chuckle about how many times this has been done, or at least an effort has started. We hope that this time has some traction, once again, because of that collaborative effort and the inclusion of all the different parties that we have available. So we're excited about that. So the most recent effort started about 4 years ago, kind of during COVID in 2020, where I joined the board, and along with Nicole and others, we just began to think, okay, what does downtown need? How can we move downtown forward? And so we hosted a couple of what we would call broad focus group meetings, where we had business owners and property owners, and just folks who enjoy downtown, and others from outside of downtown who like to come downtown. So people just live within the city. So we had a collective of probably over 100 people over 3 meetings that we began to ask questions. So why do you like downtown? Why is your business based downtown? What would you like to see the vision of downtown become? So those are just some general questions. So those translated into creating an ad hoc committee on the Ames Main Street board, where we began to have discussions about, if you recall, the way we coined it then was the next big thing. We actually had a presentation to you guys as council, and that was right around the time when Mr. Mayor came to one of our board meetings and said, "Hey guys, what is the next big thing?" And it was just very timely because we had a lot of these conversations, these focus group meetings, and we began to feel like the energy swell around, okay, let's begin to put some real ideas to what downtown could be. That led to some additional conversations. Okay, we need some help, some professional help in guiding us. And so that led to the creation of an RFP, a request for proposal. And we sought out to get multiple proposals. We received 2, one from Goldman Bank, and they were selected to help us out in this process. And Andrew's going to give a quick overview of who they are and their history. So I won't spend time on that. But then as the process developed, we wanted to create a vision for the vision of downtown. I'm just going to read that. It's the vision statement of Ames Downtown, and thusly the master plan. So downtown Ames aspires to be a unique and vibrant destination to live, work, and play. As a historic focal point, downtown Ames will serve as the hub of art, culture, retail, and entertainment for the entire Ames community. So that's our vision. The focus area of the master plan is threefold: enhance the gathering spaces in the downtown district, create a stronger sense of downtown ambiance, and then encourage downtown residential and commercial development opportunities. So that's what's leading and guiding this process, and that has been our vision and starting point for every conversation that we've had. So that captures the broad framework of what we're trying to capture here tonight. And so at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Andrew, who will provide some overview of the planning process, intended outcomes, and begin to ask some questions about the vision for Andrew.
Great. Thank you, Sam. And thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's very much a pleasure to both be working with the folks at the table as well as you. My name is Andrew Dresner. I work for Bolton and Mank. Bolton Mank is an engineering, planning, and design firm of about 1,000 employees, thereabouts. We have offices around Iowa, Minnesota, Colorado, and the Carolinas. I'm here today with my colleague, Josh Shields, who some of you may know. I work together closely with Josh up in Minneapolis. My background, just real briefly, is an urban designer and architect. And I've been doing downtown plans basically my whole career on a series on downtowns ranging in size from Nashua, New Hampshire, or Pensacola, not just much smaller towns around the Midwest. So some with colleges and universities, and some without. So this type of project is right in our wheelhouse, and I'm excited to do it with that folks yourself. So that's a little bit about me. Just a few slides here, and then we will get into the discussion. So context, we're talking about downtown. You all know where downtown is, basically the area from Grand to Duff, 6th down to the tracks. Now, technically, downtown extends down to Lincoln Way, but for the focus of our work here will be the area north of the tracks, the area that most people generally consider downtown. So Sam talked about, or used the term, the next big thing. What is next for downtown? Just a word about that. We see our job as not necessarily defining the one next big thing for downtown, but rather to define what it can be and to put some structure around it in terms of the context of the place and how downtown works in relationship to other parts of the city and in relationship to the residents of the city. So we think about it in terms of some of these questions. These are the kind of bigger questions, not necessarily the ones we're asking you to discuss. But how can downtown Ames figure more prominently into the overall quality of life of its citizens and the economy of the city? Geographically, downtown is small. They tend to be small, but they play that outsized role in the community. The heart, the identity of the community, and we always look for ways to how downtowns figure more prominently into the overall quality of life of a community. So we'll be asking throughout this process what is missing in downtown and what would propel downtown to its next level, to another level. Downtowns and cities are in a constant state of evolution. They're constantly changing. There are always preservation, not always, but there are often preservation efforts in downtown. There's definitely a preservation effort in downtown Ames to preserve a certain sense of place. And I believe that downtowns need to encourage evolution in order to preserve that sense of place. So preservation and growth are not in tension with each other. Don't need to be in tension with each other, I should say. So we believe that to be most successful, downtown should be a place for all. That's not necessarily a new idea. Sam talked about that. Downtown should support a variety of well-connected experiences, activities, attractions, uses, and places. And this little cartoon here just demonstrates one of the ways in which we think of downtowns. They're best when they are for everyone. So we think about a day in the life of downtown as one in which many people experience it in many different ways. Sometimes those experiences intersect, sometimes they don't. When people come to downtown, they need to be able to come to downtown a variety of ways, whether it's by foot, by car, by transit, by bike, or maybe they are already downtown. They need to be able to move around downtown in a comfortable way. They need to have a series of experiences, a series of places, and a series of things downtown. And in some ways, downtown works that way, and we want to nurture that. We also think of downtowns or places in a series of systems. So just as one's body has a series of systems, whether it's the neurological system or the vascular system, a downtown or a city is the same way. And the three that we tend to focus on are the uses, the spaces, and the connections. For those of city staff, they might think of these as land use, parks and open space, and transportation. Same thing. But those are different systems in the city, and they all need to work well and be strong. But more importantly, they need to work well together. They need to sit on top of each other and amplify each other's strengths, if you will. After understanding the systems, we will identify a series of initiative areas within the downtown. Initiative areas are geographically located places within downtown. They aren't necessarily individual singular projects. They tend to be places where private investments and public investments come together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Okay, so when we talk about the next big thing, one of these initiatives may be the next big thing, or maybe there's a project within one of these initiatives that is the next big thing. But this is the overall structure of downtown and will be the structure of the. So the process that we're going through is one of which we collect, I call it both soft data and hard data. The hard data is economic data, it's infrastructure, it's numbers, it's data, it's things like that. Soft data is talking to people, understanding from the steering committee, the goals of downtown, outreach to focus groups, and discussions with you. As we bring those two things together, the process is going to be overall maybe 6 months or a couple months into it. So we're not talking about a year-long process necessarily, and we're in the opening parts of it. I have here just a couple of the initial observations that we've made so far. So first of all, there is a lot of development potential downtown. There are parking lots that can be absorbed buildings. There are buildings that are vacant. There are some blighted buildings that are ready for the properties that are ready for their next life. So there is a lot of development potential, and there's plenty of infrastructure to serve that development potential. Secondly, the ingredients for a great urban neighborhood are almost all there. The only thing that's missing is the people, like the housing, which is interesting because in many downtowns, they don't have the grocery store, they don't have the restaurants, they might have the people, but they don't have the other pieces. You kind of have the reverse. You've got a grocery store, you got a library. It's a great place to live. Grocery store, library, employment opportunities, restaurants, public spaces, civic services. So you've got the ingredients. Hospitality, entertainment, and event venues are curiously missing from downtown. Often downtowns have some event venues. We often have a hotel. I know there used to be a hotel here. So just by observation, I conclude they're curiously missing here. The arrival experience for many into downtown is a little abrupt and disjointed, and maybe even disorienting, particularly if you're a visitor coming into downtown from the south. You cross the tracks, it's very abrupt. You're not. It's not as welcoming as I believe it can be. Coming from the north's a little different. It's a little, it's a softer approach, and that's important because Ames has a lot of people who are visiting. A lot of people, mostly because of the university. For habitual users of a downtown, the disjointed experience is not as big. Get over it, right? You're a commuter, you live there, you get over it. But for the visitor, that's a big deal. I know Travis is he has a background in hospitality, so he understands really well what it means to greet a visitor, make sure they have a comfortable experience, and make sure they know where to go so they can have a comfortable time when they are here. There's a very strong sense of place on Main Street. The businesses seem to be doing well. Whenever I'm there, it's fairly busy. I would say it can be extended and should be extended both towards the west, all the way to Grand Avenue, but also to the north and the south. So that great sense of place, which is, I would define that by being comfortable on a sidewalk, by having comfortably scaled buildings to your right and to your left, not having traffic whizzing by. These are all the sort of things that create, and then there are others, but those are the sort of things that create a strong sense of place. Sam refers to it as ambiance, an ambiance downtown, comfort for being downtown, particularly when on foot. And that's related to the final observation, pretty simple, that downtown, you can have more than one great place, right? I think the postcard, the image of downtown is Main Street. and it's really good. And now is the time, I think, for downtown to get the second great place, maybe the third great place, so that downtown is not thought of just as Main Street. And it's the right time to do this process. Interest rates will start to drop soon. I'm not a prognosticator. They will. They'll be dropping a quarter and eighth of a point in the next 6 months, I think. Construction costs, which were pretty crazy the past 3 years, are starting to stabilize. The retail apocalypse that we used to talk about before the pandemic and then a little bit into the pandemic has somewhat subsided. So it's, by all indications, we'll be entering another positive real estate economic cycle. So it's the right time to do this. Precisely, the sun is rising, and downtown Ames is doing well. So it's a good time to be doing this. So these are just some of the early observations that we've made early in the process. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to some discussion. I believe you received an email with these 2 questions. And this really is the open discussion for the rest of the evening. We preface this with in a few sentences. If it takes more than a few sentences, that's okay. But the first question really, Mayor, if I should kick it off, I'm happy to do it. The first question.
Well, I prefer that you have a council. I have a lot of things written down, but I think I'll take it from council first.
Well, in terms of facilitating the question, shall I?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Kick it off?
Yes,
Sure.
yes. Okay, I got some main answer.
So, in a few sentences or more, that's okay. How would you like to describe downtown Ames in 10 years from now? That's roughly the horizon of this plan. In 10 years from now, what would you and what do you believe your community would like to experience? What would you like to see? What sort of places would you like to you and your community to experience? In a sense, what do you see as downtown's future? So, you best to just go across the. And then you can, if you're not quite ready, you can pass and we'll come back to you.
I have prepared.
You have
I've
prepared
written my
notes.
notes.
All right.
And in fact, the only thing is it's going to sound really canned.
That's
right?
okay.
So in 10 years, downtown will be an area that all Ames residents see as the heart of the community, an active and walkable entertainment area where our history is honored and our future is secured through vibrant local businesses and creative housing opportunities in both new and historic buildings. Can you tell I've done visuals?
Yes, I like it.
Couple of bases there, Gloria. Great.
I crammed it all in one sentence, Sam, but it was a long one.
You read that.
You really want to hear it again?
I do. I
Yes.
want to hear it again. Absolutely.
In 10 years, downtown will be an area that all Ames residents see as the heart of the community, an active and walkable entertainment area where our history is honored and our future is secured through vibrant local businesses and creative housing opportunities in both new and historic buildings. I'd be happy to share that with you. I didn't get it all. But, I think
Perfect.
from my perspective, the key there is that right now, not all Ames residents see downtown as the heart of the community, especially many of our students who don't even know where downtown is. And so getting that perception shift, I think, is important. And I should have, instead of saying a walkable area, I should have said, an area that's, I don't know, amenable to all modes of transportation, because we want it to be walkable, bikeable, people coming in on bus or car, and just feeling that they can access what there is to offer downtown.
Walkable is the common denominator. Regardless of how one gets to downtown, everyone becomes a pedestrian. That's the way I think about it, at least.
Well, and I think we've been trying this for quite some time now, but we really need to get people living downtown, And I suspect that perhaps, well, maybe all of you are aware of the research that Donovan Ripkema has done on the economics of historic preservation and the way historic downtowns can be leveraged to create more economic vitality. And the key to that is getting people to live downtown.
Mhm.
It's not easy because we haven't succeeded very well yet.
Great.
I might, interesting, just observation there. You mentioned the value of maintaining sense of historical culture, historicity of Ames, but also coupled with a vision for the future vibrancy. Unpack that a little bit for us, if you could.
I think that we have heard since, well, in recent years, since Campus Town has been redeveloped, that we've lost that sense of place in Campus Town by having lots of chain businesses move in and the older buildings gone.
Mhm.
And obviously, Main Street has as one of its tenets that you should be maintaining historic buildings and ambiance, if you like that word, Sam. And I get the sense that people like the local businesses, the unique quality of what's happening downtown, as opposed to the national chains that might be moving in elsewhere in the community.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's really a drawing card for the downtown. It should be enhanced, supported, and generally leveraged as much as possible, because we do have businesses that don't exist in other communities, and so it can't make downtown a destination.
Yeah, I like what you said there. The notion of creating a sense of place and the destination. Those are great. Those are great qualities. So, and how that ties to the historical nature. I think there's definitely some things to make sure we maintain, connect there. That notion of future vibrancy that also would incorporate a sense of newness, I think, is also valuable in your statement there too.
Yeah, and I think that we have some opportunities in buildings that are not currently being used. I think of the Rehab Tribune building.
Mhm.
Great opportunity for an entertainment venue that is new
Mhm.
to the downtown, but it's also using a historic building. But then we also have the opportunity to redevelop in some areas of the downtown to create new housing opportunities and new entertainment and shopping
Mhm.
chances for different owners. I mean, we have some great linchpins downtown in the owners and of businesses and buildings, but we could attract new one and expand even more.
Right. Good.
Excellent.
Something else I want to just build on with that you said, Gloria, about the economic impact of having folks living downtown.
Mhm.
Just a fun fact for everybody on the dais that on the average, I'm sure this number probably needs to be updated, but on the average, for each person that lives downtown generates around $30,000 a year of economic impact. So if you think about each person, now if you, on the average, an apartment holds two and a half people. And so if you take a look at those numbers and you multiply that by the number of units that you have of living space in downtown, that adds up pretty quickly. And so it's a great point to make as far as the housing is concerned, having that built into the vision for downtown.
I might just speak to that as well. Andrew, you mentioned in one of the focus group meetings that we had over the past couple of several weeks here, there's a statistic that measured the quantity of people living in downtowns. Could you offer that stat, or the typical downtown has X amount of people living in it?
It's not uncommon, and I think it would be a reasonable benchmark for down to look at roughly 5% of a city's population living within the downtown. Okay. I think that's a reasonable target and benchmark for downtown Ames. Doing the math right here. So,
Yeah, so if you multiply just the current, I'll call it full-time residents, the non-student population of around 30,000, multiply that times 5%, so 1,500 residents. we may have 200 to 300 in that boundary that we've discussed. So we're to Gloria, you raised the point. We're drastically short of the captive audience of people who live downtown.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that we're living in a time right now when urban living is kind of regenerating. And so there's a couple generations of people that are really enjoying the idea of living downtown and being able to be next to the places that they shop and the parks that they visit and those kinds of things. So it's actually a really great time to have that housing downtown.
Can you, it seems to me it's a little chicken and the egg syndrome. In your experience, to unpack what Travis just said, what all is necessary? What are the necessary ingredients to attract people downtown? What, for example, if you had 1,500 people, it's a good data point. What are they expecting to be provided or offered? It's not just a place to live, I presume, but there's other things. What have you seen, or what does studies
From the
say?
resident, a downtown resident's perspective.
Yeah. For example, I mean, this is extreme. If you had in a downtown area, you had a one retail outlet and one place to buy coffee, and 1,500 people, it wouldn't be very
Right.
So there's got to be some kind of a mix. Can you explain that, a little bit? Without getting, I don't want to talk into details or get in the weeds. I'm just kind of curious what you have seen, kind of build upon what's saying.
Well, backing up just a little bit, one of the things I've seen is that downtown neighborhoods aren't just for one type of person. So like it's easy to think, new graduates or young professionals want to live downtown, and then it's true, they do. But a downtown like Ames is like it would be appealing for some seniors who see walking as exercise, right? Who see who might be living north of 6th Street right now, but want to stay, close to their church or synagogue or what have you. So, first off, housing is not just for one type, right? So I think that's important. In terms of the things that people look for, I think a lot of things are already there. The coffee shops, the restaurant, the library, the city services, the grocery store, the pharmacy. Those are all things that kind of cut across a lot of populations. Transit connections as a hub, because not everyone owns a car. In fact, less than 50% of the people own a car. So again, a lot of the things are here. The only thing that's not here is the housing. And that becomes a development question, having the right size piece of property, the ability to define I believe, developer to define their own parking requirements rather than having, I think a developer is the best person to define what the parking requirements are, I guess is what I would put it. So it's about finding the property and having the numbers work. Properties do need to be of a certain size. Small properties can work for housing. They would just be a different type of housing than larger properties. So again, I think the ingredients are all here, and I don't think you can make 1,500 units in 10 years. That's pretty aggressive. That's like very aggressive. But again, the city downtown doesn't end in 10 years. It keeps going.
Well, this has been really good so far. Really enjoyed the comments, and there'll be some strong overlaps with Gloria, but I have sort of 4 bullet points that I wanted to share. The first, and again, if this is going to be repeating itself at some point, but parking, I think, is really a critical component. We don't have the beginnings of parking that we need in order. And this is to the mayor's point about chicken and egg thing. Um, it seems like we're going to have a critical mass of parking in order for development to happen. And so I don't know if that's one parking structure or two. The location is going to be important. So that's a first bullet point. A second, I'd like to see more in the way of restaurants. And I will deny this. This is being recorded, right? All right, shoot. Maybe they can edit this out. But I do like Iowa City's outdoor restaurants. There, I said it. But their outdoor eating areas, their options are fantastic. And I hate to admit that I have Iowa City envy in any it's just the way I'm wired. But it's true. And they'll block off streets and they'll do just really vibrant, fun things. I'm like, when I'm over there, I'm like, why can't we do that here? There's got to be some reasons why. And so would love to see more of that. It's not winter all the time. Housing. So I'm going to add a little bit to this conversation. I think it would be great to see some hotel space in downtown. So if somebody wants to come and hang out at Ames, they're going to be staying in a hotel a long ways from downtown. I think it would be awesome to have downtown hotels. So you park your car and you spend your weekend on foot. But I like the idea of 1,500 people. I love that. But I would want to make sure that a portion of that is an owner-occupied component. So it is a different vibe when everything is rental. People who have a stake, they have skin in the game, they just treat the space differently. They just own it differently. So I would love to see a component of condominiums is in that component. And then entrepreneurs. I've spent the last 28 years in downtown Ames, and this is a point I'm going to agree heavily with Gloria on. If in 10 years, 20 years, we look back and there aren't places for startups, that will hurt my heart. I love these people. These are some really, really good people who work their heart out to try to make businesses work in downtown Ames. And this is serious. And if we find a way to successfully chase all these people out, that's going to be a sad thing. And I would like to create a placeholder. And I've talked about this a couple times in the day, but a good place to remark again. Coralville has done a really good job of where the city of Coralville has created spaces in their, what's the name of the place, John? The development.
Oh, yeah, right there by the river. By Van Mauer store.
Help me out.
I think it's
River. Anyway,
River Landing.
The Landing. I think that's it. So the city has owned spaces, and they create very low rent leases specifically for startups. And I looked at that. I'm like, we could do that. We could totally do that. This is not a high price tag thing to do. And John and I had a chance to interface with the business owners, and it was just a great success story. And I thought we could bring that here. So to summarize, parking, restaurant options, particularly outdoor, facilitating outdoors. And on that, I tried to drive an idea of having Main Street go to one way with parking on one side only and rolling out the sidewalks. I haven't been able to get a lot of traction on that. What was driving that was the idea of creating more public spaces so that restaurants could put some tables up. And so just the configuration, I don't know how to do this unless you create public space. And so I'm willing to give up on some parking in exchange for the addition of that public space. And then a place for entrepreneurs. And I'll end this with this comment. I think some of the challenges that we've had in seeing that development rest with us. We have got to find ways to say yes to projects. We have let regulatory issues, some of them just silly things, stand away. And we do things just because it's the way we've always done things. I hope that this is an opportunity where it's not just status quo, putting up a few planners. Guys, I want to swing for the fence. I want to look back. I love the way you frame this. The next best thing. I want to look back on this and say, this council did something unique. If it's just about status quo, I think we failed. If all we're going to look at is have some pictures taken in front of a planner, that's going to be a sad day. I want to do something really significant for this community, and I think that's why they elected us to do something significant, because those are my four.
That's great. I might just speak to the entrepreneurship thing with Tim. Iowa State University and the College of Business, as well as the organization that promotes entrepreneurship, by Judy Isles and also David Spalding, is one of the most recognized institutions and decorated institutions for startups and entrepreneurship in the nation. So I think there's a really interesting opportunity to cross paths and do some collaboration with that group to promote that.
So I teach in entrepreneurship.
Oh.
I teach,
Oh, there you go.
and so my students, I work with the senior capstone class, and one of their tasks, they have to go out and figure out what the rents are going to be for their startup. And they can go out and get actual numbers. And it's shocking for them, the real world task of figuring out how do I finance a startup where I have a brick and mortar location. And so I just love the idea, and I love the fact you connected with what I would say. That'd be awesome. But if we could find a way to generate some of that, and I think if it was successful, we could look at some other types of locations, maybe not just even in Ames, but other locations in Ames where we take some ownership of property and we say this is going to be area for startups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Cool idea. Next.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the points I'll echo from Gloria and Tim. My kind of initial sentence was the heart of Ames is somewhere where people of all ages gravitate towards. And my kind of 3 bullet points were more housing with a variety of housing types, options, and price points. I do agree with Tim. Not only rentals, I would like to see owner occupied there as well. And especially maybe a variety of housing, or like entry level homes or townhomes or duplexes or something like that, that could be available at a lower price point. And then I had more restaurant and dining options as well, both for a quick lunch, people are around the area that want to hop in somewhere or eat outside, or more formal places. And then I think we have a good job of this already, but places with activities. So we mentioned like an entertainment venue, could be like things for families, like a children's museum or something. And I think there's a lot of good things where you can take cooking classes, art classes, fitness classes, things like that in town, but would just want to expand the options and have more of that for people to come do things downtown instead of just shop or eat.
I like you were saying that people of all ages, all ages. It'll be interesting when the plaza's done.
Yeah.
How that will, I assume that's going to bring some younger people and younger families into downtown, which is terrific. And then the key is what else can they do downtown? What other spaces are for them, or activities, or what have you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think like it's already very vibrant with lots of events going on in the downtown space. So even more kind of activities to bring people in on days when those aren't happening, I think would be great.
Excellent.
I like it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I also have a little visioning statement before I get into my other comments. So I have a vibrant area where residents, workers, and visitors can gather and connect. Downtown Ames should be a thriving hub of commerce, culture, and community, a destination of choice, and a model for communities of our size of the concept of live, work, and play. And then I will agree with what has already been said down the line there. Absolutely, parking, owner-occupied housing is sort of a non-negotiable for me. I think you can look no further than Des Moines to see how many owner-occupied condos they have built over the last 20 years and how many new construction condos are available for sale and how quickly they actually go off the market in Des Moines. People want to be in an urban environment, and I think they're willing to invest to have a vibrant area where, like I said, they can live, work, and play. For me, and this is something I've talked about in the past, I would love downtown Ames to be a place where you can spend an entire day and then some. So if you want to come to downtown Ames in the morning for brunch or for the farmer's market or whatever, you should be able to keep yourself busy with what's available. If you want to stay out until 2 in the morning or, get food after the bars close at 3 in the morning, we should be able to offer all of that in that area. And then to Tim's point, from a city perspective, I think as a council and a city, we need to be willing to take risks. We have to be willing to be creative, and we need to approach projects and investments that come to us where our first instinct is to ask how we can get to yes or how we can get to that endpoint rather than looking at all of the ways something won't work or the challenges behind it.
One of in some of our previous meetings, that I can't remember who mentioned it, they said, I'd like to see Ames be an 18-hour downtown. Right now it's just 8-hour downtown. I see nodding up there. Something like that, an 18-hour downtown is a viable thing. It becomes a place where entertainment uses mixed with a range of housing opportunities, mixed with hospitality, mixed with restaurants and public spaces. It does often 18-hour downtowns require different things from services that other parts of the city require. So I think it's great. It brings a different type of economy to the city, and I sense there's going to be support for that. So we'll likely work towards that.
Just add, I think the piece you left out is retail. I think that I understand the dynamics of someone staying open past 5. I get that. You have people having to work in longer hours, but if people are working 8 to 5 and retailers are closing at 5 to 5:30, I'm not being critical. It's just I just kind of think about dynamism comes from people coming downtown to do their errands, to do some shopping, do other things, and it's pretty. My observation is if you have closed signs and an open sign and then close, or it's dark, it just gives you a different perspective. So I would just add to the 18-hour, and I haven't written that down too. 18-hour, maybe it's 14. I don't know. The point is that
right.
I think that would kind of create some additional energy of people coming out for other reasons. Maybe they're not coming out to eat, but they want to shop. They want to do errands. And I think Fairway is a great draw, for that. And there are some businesses that are open, so I don't want to criticize all the businesses. It's just, it is a challenge. I get it. There's an operational and a cost factor that goes into that. And maybe, again, I got a second chicken and the egg. We're going to have a whole dozen up here, but one is that what comes first?
Yeah. Well, and just to talk to your point there, I think the additional challenge too is that if there were more people living in downtown, there's a hotel downtown that would help feed that point to stay open for retailers. So,
yeah, an example of that. Excuse me.
I was just going to say, to echo what Gloria said at the beginning, I think it's a perception. So again, we need to create some of those hotels, some of those living spaces, but it goes back to creating as part of our master plan, not only the things, but how do you change that perception that drive those things, which becomes that chicken and egg, but you have to have that as part of the plan, not separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we just see Dan Culhane and his group with the Alliance and their team led a group to Fargo, North Dakota, the last week, and they're a self-proclaimed 18 to 20 hour downtown, and so it's real. It happens. Now they're a little bit larger MSA than we are, but we were walking around at night and bars are open, restaurants open. I got an ice cream at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it was great. So it's a lot of fun to have that range of opportunities.
So one point I want to just put a point in, but for those businesses who have staff that are serving ice cream, for our retail staff, it is very difficult for them to find housing in Ames. So I have sort of an experiment that I do. It's an informal survey. As I talk with people who work in retail in Ames, as I get to know them, I'm curious, do you live in Ames?
Mm.
The vast majority of people in these roles are not able to find housing. They would love to find housing. So as we think about economic development, as a council, we've got to keep our eye on the prize here. Housing. We can't make what you just said happen unless we're able to create more housing.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that need to be considered, obviously. Yeah, that's right.
You're up.
So I didn't phrase, but I echo many of the things that others have already said. And one piece was the whole destination thing, that I want when people come to Ames to be able to say, oh, you don't want to leave without going downtown.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever the thing is, there are already things that I do that with at Iowa State that I say, oh, well, this is the place you want to go before you leave. And I want our downtown to have that kind of a reputation
That's great.
for being the place that you've got to get to before you leave here. Most of my reflections were actually around that live, work, play piece. That's what I was thinking about with downtown. And so with that reflects a lot of what's already been said. A variety of housing options, which has already been talked about, but also being a model for some of the things that the council has said that they care about. For instance, an increasing number of young people do care about climate action. So making sure that we have facilities or using products or solar panels or whatever might help young people to feel like, oh yeah, that's the kind of place I want to live, where they care about these things. Even when I think about my own children that live in other cities, those are the kinds of places that they choose to live, is where they care about those kinds of issues. And so thinking about, are there some development pieces that can model that type of a downtown area where they are caring about climate action? And of course, we do want to think about affordability, but we've already talked about that. In terms of the working piece, I'll echo what was said about an incubator. In talking with some young people that graduate and then choose to live in Ankeny or Des Moines, part of it is that they can't find the other things that they would like to do here. Part of it is that they do have an idea for a business startup, or they're an artist that wants to rent a small space where they can keep their supplies and be able to do their art. So thinking about, are there ways to create those venues for small businesses that are just starting, whether you're the local candle maker of very fragrant candles, or whether you are an artist looking for space, but then also where can those things be marketed throughout the year? Perhaps a little fair area, and Philadelphia is a huge one, but there are smaller ones in other cities that are just places where you rent a booth, and those are opportunities to begin your business and to expand your business. In terms of the play, more thinking about making sure that we're thinking about all cultures, and that's with restaurants and things too. That when we look at Iowa State, and maybe it's just me, but I think about, and I ask this question when we do Welcome Fest, what would make this the place that you wanted to stay after you graduate? And I think we will want to pay attention to the variety of cultures that come to Iowa State, and how do we make all of those groups also feel comfortable here? So moving away from maybe that mainstream way of thinking about what's it mean to be, to have something for everybody, but also thinking about culture in addition to age and ability and those kinds of things. So those would be some of my observations.
Good, great stuff. Thanks, Anita.
Yeah, I think everything that I would have said has
I
been
know.
said.
I think it's smart.
I just, yeah, some thoughts as people were talking. You know, I definitely support the concept. I mean, I think Ames downtown is vibrant already. I love it. I've been working downtown for 22 years at Wheatfield now. We just had our 50th anniversary
Hey, congrats.
this year. As a downtown business, we've been downtown the whole time. So, I think it's great. So continuing what we've got, right, and that sort of vibrancy, adding more entertainment and retail options. The idea of being open later and on Sundays has always struck me. So my working day is Tuesday through Saturday, and so Sunday, Monday I have off, and I go to try to go shopping, and it's like, oh no. And so I would love to see. And I get it though. It's as an employer, it is tricky to find enough staff to cover all the hours that you'd want to be open in a day, and being guaranteed enough business to justify it. You know, that's where we need the hotel, residential options. You know, I would like to see those be as affordable as we can, but sometimes when you're renovating these spaces, and then having nice condos, premiums you can get there too, you know, it's going to be hard to get affordable living downtown, I think. I think we can talk about getting it on the periphery, but like in newly renovated downtown spaces, it would be hard to be able to keep those at a range that would be anything close to affordable, I think. So that's maybe more in the challenge category. And then the authenticity. Like I think we talked about that with small businesses, with startups, the funky parts we like about really vibrant shopping districts, those, you know, and asking like, how can you replicate authenticity? Oh, you can't really. You know, it takes the passion of a person starting a business to have that. And, you know, so it's about how to strike that passion in people and get them to commit to things or to invest in things. And that's tricky, I think, but we've touched on it a couple times, you know, in terms of saving room for small scaled things. So whether they be startups or just small scale businesses, that's important, I think. And I think we kind of miss that in certain parts of campus now. The other challenge is getting students away from campus. And they all, you know, very insular over there, and they have a beautiful campus. Why would you want to leave a park like that? You know, it's gorgeous. But to find ways to draw them out, to draw them downtown. Once they get here, I think they will like it, and the ones that I've talked to do like it. So that's just a hook on how we work on that. Maybe one of the Iowa State ventures finding a home downtown, like they have their meat market, they have their creamery, or they have different sort of student-run ventures. Like if we could find a way to bring one of those into a more downtown, and you'd have more students follow, I think. So anyway, those are just some thoughts.
I think just a word on students. Students there's a diversity of students out there. They're not all 21-year-old kids, right? And even those that are 18 to 21, there's diversity amongst them. Downtown doesn't need to replicate campus town. It doesn't need to be attractive to every student. Just a small percentage, you know, or modest percentage would make a big difference. So I just think it's important to realize students are diverse. You know, they're not all looking for campus town. That's what they have. They're not all looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Can I dovetail on something Anita said? I want to just emphasize that. I think this cultural piece is really important.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about that. Iowa's going to have to attract our Hispanic friends to this state to survive.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know how to your point, Robin, on authenticity. I don't know how you create those opportunities, those spaces, but if we could be intentional about some of that, I think that would be very prudent on our part. And so I was going to have to change in some ways if we're going to survive as a state. And um, opening up, putting out the carpet for people of different cultures makes a tremendous amount of sense. I think that's a very helpful thing you said.
There was a steering committee meeting at the start of the Prairie View industrial development that actually spent quite a bit of time talking about the fact that if we want to attract the workers for industry, many of those workers are going to be coming from other cultures. And even if they aren't coming from other cultures, if we consider that Ames has not had a good track record of providing things like hair services for African American hair. I mean, just those basic needs for everyday life to diversify the food options and the personal care options and the clothing options that people might want to see was that was a big focus of the discussion because the workforce that we hope to attract will be ever more diverse.
And if you want downtown Ames to be the heart of your community, that's where we are able to lift up all cultures. So not just through events, but through conference as well. So I agree with that.
Can you go back to your map? I wanted to share some thoughts I had too.
Here?
Yeah, I guess that would work. I really appreciate the fact that the title of the study is Downtown, Not Main Street. And and it's not because Bronwyn's on council, but I think that we're missing an opportunity to expand the western border all the way over to pick up Wheatsfield and that area, because I think that Main Street, as it wraps around, is a perfect connection. It goes over the benefit of an underpass. So you can get over there. It's very pedestrian friendly. People go very slow around there because it's got some, tight curves. And then I think to the east, maybe this is included, but I'm not sure. But Shell Park, and then the area around that, and then going down to Lincoln Way, and maybe even pushing a little farther south on Lincoln Way, because I think that whole area could be a real, an engine, which would include the Colorado Junction, whatever it's called. That's got the donut place, the Orange Leaf, that area. There is so much opportunity, I think, to really. Because I don't think I'm not hearing people say it's just Main Street and Fifth Street. So I'm just trying to challenge or push a little bit. So, like Gloria, I just wrote a statement, and actually, I'm really energized. This is thrilling to hear. I think there's a lot of convergence here amongst council. But I just wrote that in 10 years, the vision that you've quoted is fully accomplished with all residents, including students, enjoying all downtown has to offer and sees it as the epicenter of the community, and they experience diverse year-round festivals, events, celebrations. And I mean year-round, including January and February. And I was privileged to go to Fargo. I want to be, in my opinion, inspiring of entrepreneurial. And entrepreneurial is in their blood. I could go on for half an hour about that trip. But I also seeing a stronger, healthy, prosperous future where business owners want to invest, residents want to live, visitors want to experience. And I think we have to be nimble and adaptable to change as necessary, because I think things, who would have thought 10 years ago that working from home would be a key component, and you can choose where to live and work from home. So you got to be flexible. And then just seeing the downtown as the economic engine to spur on new retail opportunities and becoming an entrepreneurial hub. And we have a great research park, a hidden gem our community, and there is a lot of startups that are out there. But visiting with the mayor from Fargo and from the president of North Dakota State University, they just said, you've got to get students downtown. And so, Brian, to your point, a neat apartment or how that happens, I don't know. But the point is that they're half of our residents. I think just got to get through this energy. And I think that I'm just saying about the diversity, to your point, Anita. I just think that a monthly festival that celebrates Hispanic Month or Black History Month or you name it, you plug it in, that we find something, and then leveraging Octagon and the really cool new Ames History Museum. There is so much that I think we can really start building upon that already exists to try and really spurring that up. So anyway, so that's kind of what. But yeah, I think it wraps a lot of what's already been said. And I nothing that I would take issue with or disagree with.
I might just add to some of your comments about the larger context in the map that we were looking at. One of the challenges that we've given to Bolton Mink is to think about some of the things that are in the works right now in what I would consider the Ames Center, city center, right? Like this whole map right here, a little bit where the yellow arrows are at might be considered the city center. So we have the link that is under discussion right now. Site is in discussion. The aquatic center is turning dirt, and we're going to start to see things coming out of the ground. Campus Town, ISU Temple, you mentioned the band shell town. There's a lot of really cool spaces further down on the east side. We've seen the Ice House, Story Construction, Mike Esposito on the Ice House, which is a really great potential music venue. So we challenged Bolton Mink to think about how those really interesting activities that are going on and things that are getting built and considered, how can those influence this master plan? But then also, how could this master plan potentially influence those? And we're not sure how that synergy works just yet, but I think there is a larger vision that's being created for city center, and let's not ignore that. Let's really leverage some of those things. Now, that's a much larger, grander vision beyond maybe the 10 years, but we are seeing some things turn, and we want those to influence what we're doing here. So that I'm glad you mentioned that, John. It reminded me of that larger context that we are considering.
Yeah, and your end project is not going to be a detailed construction document ready to start breaking down, right? It's thinking about conceptually correct.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Maybe I should ask instead of tell.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I just think having a seeing how that might influence it, but I think the band shell part is a gem. I think the plaza next across the street will be a gem, in particular for winter activities and festivals. In fact, interesting quick side note, in Fargo, they started talking about how can they celebrate, because everyone talked about how bad winter is up there. And they created this thing called Frostabilt. And it started out as a weekend. It's now grown into a 6-week-long celebration. We have everything from outdoor ping pong in the middle of winter to you name it. But the point is, they just celebrate it, and it has really just taken off. And so it's just thinking differently. Why not? What can we do? Why can't we try things differently? To just get, and I think that will build. Anyway,
Good stuff. I like it.
Let's move to the second question, which is right here. Do you have any concerns as we embark on this planning process on future plan implementation and ways in which to collaborate to overcome them?
I'll just start with I want to go backwards.
Concerns that you may have?
Well, I think some of them are embedded in some of what we talked about. So again, keeping spaces for small scale things or startup things, that's both a goal and something I think we need to watch for and make sure we are proactive about doing, because I think we lost that in Campus Town a bit. Some of the funkier small field stuff fled from Campus Town, and so we heard about that. So we don't know what to get that. Also, I think we have a lot. There's a lot of plans, a lot of master planning type things, a lot of so like a way that we stick with this process and make measurable progress towards it once it becomes its final version. Like I always like to make sure, yeah, that we have ways to measure and check off progress on this plan or any plan that we're going to do, so that they don't just go by the wayside. That's something that I think we've already heard too, but so keeping it active, keeping it live once we. What else? I think not every there are competing interests. We can't pretend that we can make everyone happy, right? And so I think just how we balance those competing interests, right? Making it bikeable, walkable, pedestrian friendly, but yet still having some suitable parking. Those are balancing acts that we have to think about carefully. So I don't know about concerns there, but just things to think about.
And I would agree with those. What I was thinking about is, again, the idea of something for everyone is actually really challenging to think about. How do you make that happen? So again, although that's something I hope that we'll keep in mind, figuring out what that looks like and how to implement that, I feel like is still a challenge. And so that ended up on that list. And then I thought about things like the cost and maintenance and buy-in and all of those kinds of things, and which of course has to do with making sure that everyone stays informed, that we're talking constantly about the roles that we are hoping each agency or unit or group will play as part of this process, so that no one is left feeling like, well, they told us that we would have X. I don't know. But so just making sure that communication is good, and that sometimes when people get excited is the thing that falls through the cracks, is that the communication kind of breaks, and then people are left feeling like, well, yeah. So those would be my couple of comments.
I'm a very impatient person, so my concern is always timing. Everyone laughs because they know that's true. So I sort of cringe when I hear plans, because I probably have a little bit of trauma from past plans that take an incredibly long time and then don't really end up seemingly going anywhere, or only small parts of it are actually implemented. And so I realize that there's a process, but I would like to see things happening. I would like for this to be pushed, so that we can be responsive and not hopefully get bogged down in the weeds of things. So.
I'm glad you're impatient. It's good. It's good.
Yep. So my two
Yeah, play your mic.
going with similar line to Anita, but just getting public input on this. And I especially want to make sure we get that from stakeholders not already involved in downtown, especially reaching out to like marginalized communities, students, families, older people, people with accessibility challenges. Want to make sure that we get that variety of input and not kind of make the decisions in a silo. And then my second one would be how we fund a lot of these investments. I know like some of the other districts that I've toured have done like SMID districts or other creative ways to fund things. But with our city budgets becoming more and more restrained by the Iowa legislature, I think creative financing is going to be a concern and a challenge we have to address.
Great. Thank you. So this is going to dovetail a lot. But one of the things we'll have to think through as a council is how we envision the buildings that are currently in our downtown area. So some of these areas, some of these buildings have historic value and others really don't. I work in a building downtown that has very little historical significance. I'd be happy to see it torn down. And so I think we need to have an honest, sort of robust conversation, because that's going to impact our options. So if we take the approach that nothing can come down, then it's going to be very difficult for really any of these conversations to be had, because there aren't many vacant spaces around. So we're going to have some conversations about what does it look like to respect our history and yet see some robust redevelopment. The second thing that we can talk about an 18-hour downtown, for the people who live downtown, that may not be as compatible. So I'll just give you a micro example. We've had situations where the food vendor that sometimes is downtown, like music, there's laughter, there's noise, happy things. But for the people that are living, in the apartment, just on the second floor, like, when is this ever going to end? And so those are sort of real life. How do we navigate that stuff? And I'm going to go tell a bit on what Rachel said. I appreciate your comment on finances. There's a backdrop to all of this conversation that is going to start framing a lot of our city council meetings moving forward. And Rachel hit it squarely, is that the issue of the way in which state government is looking at trying to micromanage every single town in Iowa in the budget. And so it is more important than ever that we build our tax base. So if the state is going to yank our chains in terms of the allowable growth rate in property taxes, then what that means for us is there's increasing pressure on us to broaden our tax base. So we need to add more residential tax base, we need to add more commercial, and we need to add more industrial. So that wasn't something that folks probably had as part of variable in your thinking. We didn't either. And we don't know details on this. We're certainly going to do our best to resist this nonsense. Have I mentioned how firmly I feel about this? Does that come out? But if we can't stop this, and we're going to live in sort of this heavy-handed, draconian environment, then we can't just sort of stick our head in the sand. We have to figure out how we respond. And so there's a critical value, because we can't provide the city services, the library, the police, fire, parks and rec, unless we have the flexibility on our revenue side. And that's the problem with the legislature. They're only focused on one half of the equation. These people still think we have to provide services. And so I'm looking at this project not just in the scenario of making it cool downtown. I'm looking at it from the perspective, I want Steve, when he does his budget, to have money to work with. That's really important to me. So there's sort of another framework that has been layered on to this for me.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So I don't disagree with things that have been said. I will follow up on what Tim just said and maybe take it to another logical step. If we do create an 18-hour downtown and city services need to be shifted and put into play in different ways for more hours, then that financing also becomes an issue that we maybe haven't anticipated previously, because we haven't had an 18-hour downtown or a 7-day-a-week downtown. For me, one of the challenges is believing that this plan will have legs. and that it will actually carry on for 10 years. Those of us who have been on council for the last 10 years have, as Amber said, seen many plans come, and I don't know that they actually go, they just kind of languish. And I think that we have seen multiple visioning processes from Main Street, and we've seen a lot of excitement about various projects, and we've put money into different things that are kind of flash in the pan. I'm thinking of thousands of dollars for the lights on the buildings downtown, which is a great idea. I don't know what's going on with those, that it's like they were a great idea for a while, but now are they still a great idea or if we have the continuity within the board and with our new director, who's, I hope, going to be with us for quite a while, there's more of an opportunity for that kind of consistency and the sorts of things that Anita mentioned to happen. Consistent messaging, to have continuous messaging throughout the 10 years that, or 15, however long you think the plan should be in operation. But if we have too much turnover in the leadership, both of the Main Street board and the alliance itself, then we risk having this plan go the way of other plans. And I think that I at least would like to feel that it is a plan that will be used and that we can do that checking off that Bronwyn mentioned, to see the progress. Because one of the other things that has been challenging with the turnover and in leadership over the years is that there hasn't always been a very good accounting of where the money goes, what it's being used for, and I'm not insinuating that there's anything nefarious there, but when you have turnover, things get lost in the process, and so continuity to me is the thing that could lead to success in this case, and making sure that the council can be confident that there's progress that's being made is going to make us more willing to invest. The other thing that comes to me as I listen to Amber is that sometimes the city process is the place where great ideas go to die, because we have a long process for many, many things to happen in this city, which generally means that the quality of what we're introducing is pretty high, but it also means that an idea that was great 8 months ago is no longer a great idea because the economy has shifted, things have changed, and the city process has just taken so long that we haven't been able to get everything else to do it. And so I think that as a city, we need to be looking at the ways we are part of the process. And we've been making an effort to try to figure out where the stumbling blocks are, what might be slowing downtown development, but we haven't been getting the kind of information that we can work with very easily. So I'm hoping that our efforts will continue to streamline the processes, or at least make it easier for people to do what they need to do following the process, and clear a lot of the roadblocks out of the way so that some of these great ideas can make it from the planning stage to the implementation stage and enhance downtown.
Wow.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. Just a couple
I'm
things.
not. Must be.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Whoops.
I'm going to change the word concerns to opportunities. I want to reframe this. I just think that, full disclosure, I can be the first person to say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? But again, I'm getting back to Fargo. Those people basically are, let's get this thing done. We can do it. And I'm just going to say, let's do the same thing here. We can do this. Yeah, there's going to be hurdles we got to overcome. And finances are probably going to be one of them. But the point is, there's a lot of public partnerships that can go ahead. I couldn't, it was really well said about what has been already talked about. In particular, the fact is that, the energy. I do think we have to create this compelling vision that our community and the stakeholders are excited about, but that's got to continue. If it goes for this great kickoff, and then all of a sudden, in 9 months, it just starts languishing, you say, there's another one. So I think it's going to take all of us working together. And for some reason, I think it's different this time. I think there's people in the right seats on the bus to try and get this thing moving forward. And I think that our council, as you've heard, wants to see things move forward. So we got to work together. And but I don't think anyone's naive to realize there's always going to be people who are paradigm pioneers are going to be out there, setting the vision and moving forward. Those are the ones that aren't going to be so excited about it. And so I think the opportunity is to help others who maybe, we don't want to do this or why, just to give them a reason to believe in it and want to support it. So I think that there's 7, 8 people up here that want to do that. I think we got to be the cheerleaders. We need that help for everybody. But instead of saying, "Oh, that won't work," we got this. Oh, why not? What do we need to do to change that? And it's going to include us as a city. It's going to include business owners. But we got to listen to the business owners. We got to listen to you have to listen to business owners. They're the engine there, the stakeholders. So I think it's a great opportunity. I'm really excited, and I really appreciate all the feedback we got tonight. So I think it's been outstanding. Great questions, until this information. So what else would you like?
Can I just say one more thing on this? Sure. One just word I haven't heard tonight is arts. And when I think about really great developments, I have to think about Dubuque and how they've created a vibrant space for art in Dubuque. And so just somewhere I just want to make sure that that's on someone's list. Really great spaces for art.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point. I think the other thing that has been going through my mind occasionally is going back to what you were saying, Andrew, about the things that people were looking for if they were living downtown. We have to make it possible for people to work from home. And that means making sure that the internet downtown is functioning well. And I don't know, I haven't heard any reports on what's been happening with the downtown internet, but if people can't work when they're at home, they aren't going to live in that location, or at least they won't be happy living there.
Sure. Are there other things you'd like to ask council while we're gathered together tonight?
I don't. I mean, these were kind of open-ended questions. You gave us a lot of really good information. There's definitely convergence, as someone used the term up there, between the ideas. There's definitely, I think there's also convergence with concerns that looking forward. What I can tell you is that I think a good plan is one that relies on, and you talked about flash in the pan and sort of, ideas that seem great that maybe peter out. I think a good plan both relies on fundamentals, but also creates fertile soil for new ideas to grow. Not everything grows successfully. I mean, not all startups make it, but you need that fertile environment that invites people to plant ideas. But there's also just fundamentals. I think of city building that I personally often lean back on. All good towns have good downtowns have certain things and sort of been that way for 2,000 years. And so I think a good plan will blend those fundamentals, but it also does challenge assumptions and bring in new ideas. So that's what we hope to bring to the process. We also hope to bring to the process big ideas, but incremental steps to get there, and a way for the downtown to grow organically while also seeing pretty significant changes. So I don't know. Those are some of the thoughts that I have coming out of this.
So to that end, this has all been, for the most part, very abstract tonight.
Yeah.
And I can only stay in that sphere so long. If you have some examples of downtowns of peer level communities, like I was going online looking at Pensacola, you mentioned that. So I was flipping through Pensacola's downtown. So, but if there are examples that you think would be helpful, and maybe 2 or 3 cents on what attribute those downtowns have that you think would be worthy. I mean, this is what we do. We think about this stuff. So I would value 4 or 5 downtowns that you think would be worthy of our time.
Yeah. Well,
as links.
So in terms of the concrete, seeing out of the abstract, I guess I'll speak specifically to Ames. We're working within a box, and you challenge us to look beyond the box. Physically, there are physical barriers to getting beyond the box. And you mentioned Grand actually does, or excuse me, Main Street does go under. So but physically, the roads, particularly south of the tracks, have got to be improved. So connectivity across the tracks is really important. And I'm sure that I can imagine that this plan will speak to different ways in which downtown can connect to the south, not just by the roads. We might be discussing overpasses. We'll be discussing different ways to treat your public spaces, so streets that can be converted into parks. I don't know if Fargo or streets that can be converted into plaza spaces at certain times of the year. As a way to expand your public realm for more uses, more times of the year. I'm pretty sure we'll take a close look at, I think it's a 70-foot right-of-way of Main Street. Like, this is not abstract stuff. This is down to signed construction documents, but it's looking pretty specifically at ways to increase the public space, pedestrian space on Main Street. Is there an appetite for trading off a little bit of parking to get additional public space? So we'll definitely be going in that direction.
Andrew, can you just review for council briefly who have you talked to so far in terms of focus groups, and who else are you going to be talking to? I know one of the things the council is really, adamant about was just that there's a good cross section. I think Rachel, you mentioned that also. Maybe just talk about where you're at in the process, and then I just have one other. Just want to add to is that it seems to me to keep a vision going. If we can start with small, low-hanging fruit, and start getting small wins, and then start, spooling up. If we can just stop, we can all just change our way of thinking and not saying, well, when's the city going to do this? Or when's the business owners going to do this? Or when is X going to do it? Change it to, when are we going to do it? And it may mean that one time more plow pushing or pulling by the city, and the next time maybe it's less. SMID was mentioned by some other things, but it's just we can't look at everybody else to do it. It's got to be us. We got to just think differently. I think that's what we want to do. I think that's what we're going to have an expectation here in City Hall. Not that it's not here already, and then it's more or less how can we get together, because if it comes down to, well, city, when are you going to start putting all this money in, it's just going to take a lot longer, and we got challenges. But if we can say what are some opportunities. So anyway, so what have you done for that was an editorial comment, sorry.
So
What were you at in terms of soliciting input? Were you?
our primary input comes from the steering committee, Sam, Nicole, Travis, and that's our primary input. Sam mentioned, and maybe we can talk more about the input that you've had in the past 3 years, listening sessions. There's been, input before we came on, which we've taken in as data. We also had 2 focus groups a couple weeks ago with business owners and property owners downtown. Attended, I think, I don't know, 15, 20 people or thereabouts in each of those. So that's been the primary input that we've had so far.
I guess to add to that,
If you can get close, yes. Some people have a hard time hearing in the back.
in addition to the ones that he mentioned with the business owners, we also had Iowa State represented. We had developers represented. We had bankers. We had real estate. A variety of. It wasn't just one group. It wasn't just downtown business owners. We really were intentional about who we brought to those different focus groups to get that perspective. We've also talked about additionally, once we get to, I think people need something to react to. Until you can actually see something, it's hard to kind of form a perception about it. So once we get to that point, gathering the input through, we talked about a farmer's market where you would have a QR code that you could provide input to look at this thing. What do you think about this thing? And then how do we take those and prioritize those based on the recommendations that come from some of these input sessions?
There's an adage, participation breeds ownership. And I think if you get people, I'm just going to challenge and push back a little bit. I just think students have got to be asked, if you haven't already, people who are you anticipate may be hesitant, reluctant, dare I say, no, need to be engaged in the process. And there's people that around if it takes a little longer to get that feedback, I do think that will pay dividends. I understand what you're saying, Nicole. I don't agree. It's sometimes easier to respond to something. But if they have a chance to give input like we have tonight, I think it will help people realize, hey, I see something I suggested or that makes sense, but I had a part in actually giving input to it versus just being, well, you like it or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We also had talked about just having some open-ended questions that you could do through a QR code that would say, what would you like to see downtown? And we can't implement everything. We can't be everything to everybody. We can't implement every single idea, but we can gather all that. And then, like you said, if they see, oh, here's one thing that I did, then there's the buy-in. I did want to comment on something Amber had said about impatient. And if anyone knows me, I'm very impatient too. I like to see things progress. And so I guess I would add the word implementation in front of the word plan, because anything that I would see us doing, there's going to be a plan, an implementation plan, not just a plan. Like, here's some things we could do, but more phased approach to it. And that's what we've talked about. Sam and I've been talking about that for months. Of there has to be clear steps and a phased approach, so we can report back to you and gain momentum on the things that we're working on.
I just want to follow up on something that you said, Nicole, about like the farmers market and QR codes. One of the things that I think would open up input more would be to do low-end response with handwritten responses to questions at places like the library or a pop-up in the neighborhoods. So you get people who aren't at the farmers market, who maybe don't have smartphones or they don't want to use the data because they can't afford to, and yet they're the ones who may be using the parks or coming downtown to the library all the time. And in those efforts to engage with the underrepresented groups, we've discovered that, the higher the technology bar, the less likely many of those groups are to actually provide input.
Back to I like sort of very often, right? Things so structured. John, I have a follow-up question to you. Really, when you think about student input, when you think of having students participate in the business aspect or downtown or all of them?
Yeah, all of the above. I think it's if we can get a. I mean, Emily has just been a really phenomenal ex officio, and she said she would have been here tonight, but there's a group called the Board of Regents that were going to be on campus, and student government was not asked to, but expected to attend a meeting with them. So she said she couldn't be here. But to talk to her and just get, a cross section of students to just maybe answer these two questions. And if I joked and said, maybe you have to take them and give them a tour first and then ask them. Maybe they're not familiar with it. But it's not going into like trying to get 2,000 or 3,000 students. It's just trying to get another sample segment. I think it's really important to understand. And he said, well, I didn't really understand even it existed. Maybe just spending 15, 20 minutes explaining what is here. What would be of interest. It's amazing. Correct me wrong. I think they said there's 70% retainage of college students in Fargo that stay in Fargo to live, work after graduate. That just absolutely blew me. Is that correct? 70%. It was unbelievable. And then it was 50%, but it was amazing. But the point is, they saw themselves being participants in what's going on. I think because they're part of that, and so we can't keep 70% of our 30,000 students every year. Well, we can like to. But the point is that it's just, I think just to get their perspective would be helpful. And maybe, Rachel, you're not that far removed from graduation. You might have some ideas who to contact. But again, I'm not trying to make this out, but that's half the population. And
Yeah, the reason I wanted to tease that out, and I think, thank you for that. So, I did a city trip a number of years ago in Manhattan, Kansas. So in Manhattan, Aggieville is sort of a place where there's the community and the students sort of converge there. But it's just hard geographically to figure out how to get students here downtown. And really, the campus town businesses would love to have more of us there. So that's sort of both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious. Your thoughts.
well, and that's true. I asked about that in terms of Fargo. They don't have a campus town and a downtown. Their downtown is really kind of the hub, the center. And I think most of the communities we have gone to have been college towns. That has been the case. There hasn't been, both. It's been one, which has been, helpful. But you know what? We can figure this out. We can do something, and maybe it looks a little different. But I think it's just good to get their feedback. I talked about the Octagon Art Festival. I say, what's that? I explained to them, well, that sounds pretty awesome. So we just have a messaging, challenge.
Thanks.
And I just wanted to reiterate the comments about making sure that we're getting input from the community at this point. I think we want to hear, especially from people that don't currently come downtown. So farmers market might not be the place to hear from people that aren't currently accessing that area, but knowing what would motivate them, what are the kinds of things that they would be looking for. That focus group idea, I think, is ideal, and we would be very interested in seeing those comments.
That's a really good point. And one additional thing we talked about is partnering with the city on some of your current communications that you are pushing out to residents. What are the ways we can partner and create? So if we have a landing page on our website, then how can we use maybe just a newsletter that the city has to drive the traffic to there? So I think it's being creative about how to have just farmers market is just one example of that, but using the different tools that we have and the partnerships we have with the different entities.
If people did want to give input at this stage, like if a member of the public is watching here or at home and is like, hey, I have input I'd like to give, what is the best way for them to do that at this point?
Good question.
I think we're still working on that, but I think we had talked about having it be directing them to the website, and then having a form that we would have there, and we can easily build that with some of those questions and collect them down. To your point about a handwritten type of way, we can investigate that too. But that was our first thought, is having a way to get feedback directly website.
And this would be on the,
Yeah,
the
Texas,
downtown's website.
downtownames.org,
Okay.
But then also connecting those things, maybe we'd have a link on the city's website too. So those cross promotion types of things could, I think, could be really valuable.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
also
that
add to
just
that too, that on the amesdowntown.org website, there is a tab called Master Plan. You click on that and there's information there of what we've done so far. There's also an investor brochure. There's also a link to be able to sign up for more information as it comes available to the public. So I'd encourage everybody that's watching, that's interested in knowing more about the Downtown Master Plan, to go on there and check that out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the
One
reason
other
they were
data
so
point that-
concerned about public input is that we may be asked to invest taxpayer dollars,
Mhm.
and we want them to believe that this is really an exciting investment that that the community will benefit from.
Mhm.
And so that's why I think the more input, well, I say more, we're not talking about thousands of people, but the point is diverse input
Mhm.
will be helpful to say we really endeavored to try and capture a variety of focus groups. And that we sought to listen, and that we believe this plan and this vision reflects, that. We want to move this forward.
Mhm.
One of the things I want to make sure we also added is when we think about bringing people to downtown, I have a little exercise that I do when I'm walking along Main Street. Travis, I'll give you this to think about. I spend time looking at the license plates of our cars. So we have tons of cars in downtown Ames that are from Hardin County, Hamilton County, counties to the north, that we're the closest sort of shopping cultural area that they have. And so I just want to make sure that that's noted there. That our who we serve here isn't just within the footprint of Yellowstone County. It's really to the north, and it's just amazing number of cars I see from counties.
Well, and maybe that suggests that if you had a couple of questions that were available in the stores on Main Street, you could get input from the people who are coming in from wherever. Whether you use a QR code or a box that they can
But
put
if
things in.
you talk to Emmerhoffs, you talk to Ames Silversmithing, I don't know that they would survive just on us. They have business models
Right.
that they have a great client base that goes well beyond our community. So I just want to make sure thinking about draw on them as well.
Interesting that you mentioned that. I was just talking to Dan today about how a lot of our market is from the north and surrounding communities in those areas. And as I'm going around and introducing myself to business owners and getting to know their business a lot more, a lot of them tell me that the bulk of their customers come from that. Not to disparage, their local customers, because they have a good base of those too. But it just shows that we have a lot of visitors coming to downtown Ames and utilizing and purchasing from those businesses. So to take advantage of that is very helpful.
And to Amber's point, you want to give them a reason to stay the entire day and evening and go home when it's dark outside and not just come shop and then leave.
Or perhaps stay the weekend.
Even better yet. Or actually, even more so, move here for the rest of life.
Exactly.
Anything else?
No,
I'm pretty good.
no, this has been great. Thank you all
Yeah.
once again for coming tonight and participating and just offering this fantastic input. We'll take the other things to heart and just soliciting more input from people in the city, as well as just being wary of some of the concerns as well as we walk forward. So this has been great.
I just want to thank you again for the opportunity. This dialogue, it's been really great. I do want to mention too, and I'll be very direct. The point that Gloria made about the consistency of leadership, and I know that Main Street has gone through multiple leadership roles throughout its time. This project in particular was something that Dan and I talked at great length about, and so I was hired in large part not only to run the Main Street program, but to also help lead this effort. And so that's my goal. And I can't promise you the world, but I at least look at this as 10 or 15 years of job security. But I have a passion for downtowns. I love downtown Ames. I'm getting to know the business owners. I'm getting to know the great group of people that serve on our board and that serve in the city. And I just think this partnership just has such a great opportunity and potential to grow and to expand to more what we're even probably talking about here tonight. So if that helps calm some nerves or give you some solace, I wanted to let you know that this is and we're shooting for the stars on this. I agree with Tim. I think I mentioned to Andrew early on that if we're not shooting for the Taj Mahal here, then we've already failed. And so I would love for downtown Ames to be the example in his industry of what is possible for the modern downtown destination that maybe other communities can look to and say, how did you do that in Ames? Because Ames is such a cool place. And you're right. And somebody mentioned about spending time in downtown. People come to ISU for the game or for another event. They want to make time to either hit downtown before or after that event so that they can experience that coolness as well. And that's one thing that we heard from Fargo is start with the coolness factor. Make downtown cool. And so I absolutely love that. So more to come. But just thank you again for your ideas and your aspirations for downtown. We share them as well. And we look forward to getting this continued partnership.
Nicole, am I anything or not? You're
I
good.
think just finally, just the synergy that we've seen here is amazing. And thank you for your input. To hear all of you seem to be all on the same page and having the same goals was energizing, refreshing, and very exciting, and ties into exactly what we've been trying to work on with this plan. Go back to it will be an implementation plan, and we're going to work hard to whatever the things that Andrew and his team come up with. It won't be just a list of things. We will work it into a plan. And just another example, just the buy-in. And Tim and I've talked about this quite a bit. I want to live downtown. I want a condo downtown. And so there's some things that people in my age group, it's not just students. There's the variety of different people that want those opportunities, and it's just kind of a fun and a vibrant place to be. So I not only want to help out with this, but this is where I want to live. So. Oh, something like that.
I have to say, I think it's somewhat ironic that Travis is talking about finding out what would make Ames cool. And we had that question on our citizen satisfaction survey for how many years? 5. So there's data on what people said, not absolutely recent, but within like 3 years. If you're interested, I'm sure Susan Gwiazda could hook you up with those insights.
Very good. All right. On to council comments. Gloria, anything?
I enjoyed the discussion, and I hope that we see this plan come to fruition and make it even better than it already is.
I love when people live for things bigger than themselves. And so, you two, this is a volunteer thing for you, and sometimes trying to invest in the future. And Travis, great to have a first opportunity to have a dialogue with you tonight. And I think you're a great asset to the community. And Andrew, thanks for the expertise you bring. So, looking forward to this.
Yeah, exciting meeting tonight. I'm excited to see where we go in the future.
Nothing for me. No. I echo what they said. How exciting, and looking forward to the implementation plan.
Nothing else for me.
Well, on Main Street downtown, note, we broke ground today on for the wastewater treatment plant. So had a great turnout. It's very exciting that we had quite a few people from the community that drove out there. So looking forward to that successfully completed. So with that, entertain motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.